Hi everyone, I'm just checking what time it is and realize it's time for another episode of Bourbon over Headlines, where your headlines are served neat. So everybody, pour yourself a glass of your favorite whiskey, sit back, and enjoy going back in time. Today, we're going to Cochran, Georgia. That's in the middle of Georgia. It's about 40 miles Kanye's oldest kid of Macon, which is northwest. I'm sorry for the bad joke. My apologies. I was trying to do something funny that sounded horrible coming out of my mouth. But yeah, northwest of Macon. Just a little bit about Cochran. It is in Beckley County. As I said, it's 40 miles northwest of Macon. It was named for Judge Arthur E. Cochran. It was incorporated in 1869. Now, it was originally named Dykesboro after a guy named B.B. Dykes. Not after dikes, the natural formation of rivers. Okay. Now, the reason why I got named for Judge Cochran was like a myriad of cities and towns across this nation of the United States. He was part of a railroad. In this case, he was president of the Macon and Brunswick Railroad. Okay. So basically, he put a railroad depot here. That the town started with that, made sure the area had a place to put its people could come off, go on, carry its goods and everything. I mean, there's tons of towns where you wondered how they got their name. If you guessed it was because something involving the railroad, you would probably be right a good majority of the time, 60-70%. Either it's the person who worked to campaign to get that railroad depot there, it's the president of the local railroad, it's whatever. It's either that or someone born in the town or some legislature. That's usually how the cities are named. Which is now, the Macon and Brunswick is now part of the Norfolk Southern Railway system, which the name explains itself. The current population of Cochran is just over 5,000 people. In the 1920s, it ranged from 2,000 to about 2,200. So let's just say 2,100 for purposes of this. Middle Georgia State University, which is based in Macon, has a branch here in Cochran. It was founded in 1884 as Middle Georgia College. It became Georgia Agricultural A&M. And eventually in 2013 it got rebranded to Middle Georgia State University as part of the Georgia State University system. There's a branch here. There are 3 places listed on the National Historic Register of Places. The intersection of Hicksville and another street, the Cochran Courthouse, and the main Cochran School Building are registered in historic places. For something that something interesting here that I found interesting is Cochran, Georgia hosted the 50th U.S. Army Air Force Training Detachment, and from March of 1943 through July of 1944 it graduated 17 classes to go help us win World War II and beat the Nazis. Let's toast that. A little town in Georgia helped beat the Nazis. Alright, and before I go any further, let's get some notable people. Okay, so you're either going to be watching this on a TV, preferably a smart TV, and your mobile phone. Well, Cochran, Georgia has a lot to do with that, believe it or not, because Ed Roberts was the creator of the Alatar 8800 and the Alatar Basic, which is the software system, which was used in Microsoft's first software system. So have you ever heard of BASIC? This is where it came from. If you're a computer geek, have you ever heard of BASIC? This is where it started from. This guy was from Cochran, Georgia. It kick-started, launched the microcomputer era, which we are in now, which is why we have phones and everything that can do that. That's microcomputers. This was the beginning of that with Ed Roberts doing this. Another notable person, there aren't that many, but a Nancy Radman, who was a fashion designer and clothing, and also had a bunch of retail chains, called The Forgotten Woman, which is basically a precursor or a higher end version of Lane Bryant, which is clothes for plus size women. They shuttered their doors as a retail store in 1999. I don't know if they're still around. I couldn't find anything about them being around new, like just online. So I think once they shuttered the stores and she died, it pretty much went away. She died in 2020. Also, sometimes the symmetry and sometimes the serendipitous of all this stuff. Aramis Mims, who is an NFL football player for the Cincinnati Bengals. That's right. I did Cincinnati last week. That's my previous episode. So go check that out. At the end of the video, it'll be up here in the corner. To check out it's called the Cincinnati Way, Presidents in Baseball. He played for the University of Georgia, but he's been playing with the Cincinnati Bengals now since I think 2021. I think he was drafted in 2020 and starting in 2022. He's a starting offensive lineman for the Cincinnati Bengals. Amazing how that works. Now, let's get to the story, shall we? First thing we're going to do today is we're going to go to fairs. We're going to go to the fair. Anyone here like fairs? State fairs, county fairs? Anyone here? I know it's fair season in a lot of places now. So this is the first ever, that's right, the first ever Beckley County Fair. Get ready, people, for the Stock and Agricultural Show. Now, back then, a lot of these fairs were actual, like, you brought your animals in, you sold them, you showed them off, kids won prizes and everything for this. It shows up the new stockyards of this company called Mullis and Skipper. It says, there will be a county-wide exhibit of hogs, all kinds of agricultural products, canned goods, fancy chickens, and fancy needlework. So basically, it's where you brought like crops, products, agricultural products, hemp products, whatever, canned goods, whatever. It's basically the big exchange for the county fair. Now, when we think of county and state fairs, you got the rides, you got all the fancy fried foods like fried Oreos, fried butter. They'll fry anything if they really want to. I mean, if they could fry bourbon, I think they would fry. Well, maybe not. Bourbon might be sacred, but they'll fry anything. You give them, they'll fry a pickle. I'm sure if you found a way, they could fry. And they do have fried ice cream. So they fried ice cream. They'll fry anything, or combine anything. Now a Kit Kat taco if you give them enough time. Pardon me. So, but back then it was more of an actual agricultural show where they would come in, people would come together, show off their hogs, sell them, whatever, see what they're doing, maybe give out prizes for the best hog. They do that still. So this particular article is from May. The fair's in October, so it's advertising it several months early, so you can go and get ready, because Beckley County is a decent sized county, and making sure you have the time to travel. Now, I mentioned in my short a couple days ago, advertising this, about Fiddlers. So I don't know if anyone's familiar with The Devil Went Down to Georgia by the Charlie Daniels Band. It's a great song. I don't care if you listen to country or not, it's a great song. It's a great story song. So basically, devil comes down to Georgia, finds a young boy, challenges him to a fiddle contest for his soul. And the Georgia boy wins, because it's a Charlie Daniels song, and you're not going to have the devil win in a country song. But I think I figured out why Johnny won, the country boy won. It's because they have a fiddler, they had Fiddlers contest in Georgia. So they've had Fiddlers contest, so they would go against each other to rate the best fiddler. So if you're beating everybody in town, everybody in the state, sure enough, you can beat anyone. So it says Fiddler contest and amateur night. Oh, an amateur night in the 1920s. Basically, it's October 28th, 35-cent admission. 35 cents? Well, back then that's a lot of money. So it's October 28th, which is 3 weeks after the state fair. So go to the state fair, a couple weeks later, you get home with all your new hogs, all your new canned goods, then you go to the Fiddler contest. Now, now these prizes don't sound like a lot today, but back in 1928, or 1921, yeah, 1921, yeah, this is 1921, these were $5 was a lot of money. So $5 for the best fiddler. $5 for the best fiddler and singing. So if you could fiddle and sing, do two things at once, we gave you $5 too. So, what if you were the best fiddler and the best fiddler singing? Is that two separate categories? Can you win 10 for that? Or is it two separate categories? You can't be the best fiddler, just fiddle without singing, and then you go and fiddle and sing. Can you do both? Doesn't say here. Now, $5 for the best dancing. So all your Southern belles, grab your guys, go out there and dance the night away while the people are playing the fiddle. Now, that's all cash. Now we get into the other prizes. $5 in merchandise for the best music by several string instruments. So you can get a bunch of your string people together. Anyone ever seen old movies of the old, like, the bluegrass people who get like the broom handle, put some strings on it, get like a head of a shovel or something on the bottom, and sit there and just like pick some random instrument? Yeah, that would be that. That's a string instrument, right? It's a string. Yeah. The second place fiddler is $3. A case of Cheerio Cola. So I'm guessing that's cherry cola, I guess. For the best fiddler with piano accompaniment. So if you have a piano guy. And then this is for Steve Martin. So Steve, listen up. Case of Coca-Cola for the best banjo picker with guitar accompaniment. So find yourself a guitar, Steve. You and him could share a case of Coca-Cola. I think that's funny. Now we know why the devil lost when he was in Georgia. I got two stories here from the same day, and they sort of go together, and it's really weird. So they don't go together per se, but they're ironically together. A lot more ironic than any Alanis Morissette song you might have heard of. So, first story. Fire damages Planey Mill plant. A few minutes before 4 o'clock Thursday morning, so 4 a.m., a fire broke out at the Cochran Lumber Company. Remember that. Fire broke out at the lumber company. Okay? It could have been very disastrous, but the fire department was very quick. Good job, fire department. Always love a quick fire department, especially at 4 o'clock in the morning. The washerman's clock was punched at 3 o'clock. There's reports of the shaving house was on fire when he returned from his usual rounds. So he punched in at 3, did his rounds. He saw a place on fire at 4, called it in. A spark from the furnace. So there was a furnace, a spark caught some wood. Why do you have a furnace near wood? I know the furnace probably ran on wood. No, it probably ran on coal. It's probably a coal furnace back then. But everyone had a furnace. Sometimes things fly out of the furnace. Why do you have wood near it that can catch on fire? You run a lumber mill. So if you run it on wood, then you know wood could catch on fire. And why do you have wood within range of a spark near it? I'm just trying to figure this out, because this makes no sense. You have a furnace running, whether it's coal or wood-fired furnace, and you have wood around it within a range where a spark could catch it. Someone needs to rework that. Maybe we need to get OSHA in there and say these standards aren't right. This is the 1920s. There is no OSHA. Believe me, there is no OSHA. So, the shed around the boiler, which is a furnace, was destroyed. And the shaving house, which is where they probably shaved the wood, was practically destroyed. So it was completely destroyed. Some lumber piled around the shed was also burned. Well, there's a shock. You mean there was lumber around the shed that was burned when the shed caught on fire? Who would have thought that? But you gotta love the way they write. You have to give us all the information. The fire reached the main roof of the plant and burned part of the shed and the roofing on the north side of the building. So it spread before they got it. But the burned lumber and shaving conveyor was covered by insurance. Hey, insurance, good job. But the shed, the boiler, and the connections were not. So the main building, so the conveyor and the actual lumber, so the actual lumber wasn't covered, but the building that it was in, and the furnace slash boiler that was there wasn't insured. So you covered the actual product, but not the buildings. That's funny. They thank the fire department for their splendid work. They certainly prevented what could have been far worse. So next story. Headline: lumber wanted. Well, I wonder why. You just had a fire and burnt some wood down, so I guess you need lumber. A company handling very high-grade motor trucks is now engaged in a manufacturing enterprise, requiring rather large volume of lumber. Well, you know, there's a plant right there. Maybe you can go for the lumber plant. But wait, that just burned down, so you can't. The company is in position to allow exceptions of great prices for lumber. Will pay part cash for same and credit balance on truck purchases. So basically, they're going to pay cash for the lumber, but also give you credit towards your truck purchase, which is kind of a good deal. Thus allowing buyer very easy terms. Okay? They want pine, poplar, gum, and cottonwood trees, boards, random whiffs, all of it. They just want all of it. They want all the lumber. Well, if your lumber burned, if part of your lumber mill hadn't burned down, you would have had plenty of lumber to give to these guys. I just found that funny that one page over, in the same paper, on the same day, same paper, one's on page 1, one's on page 6. Fire's on page 1, the fact that they want lumber's on page 6. Interesting. Isn't it ironic? So we have the Fiddlers with the fires. Now we're getting to the taxes. Now we're in 2026. Okay. There have been various states, various cities. I know the state of Florida just made it so it's harder to buy certain sugary soft drinks and stuff like that on food stamps or SNAP benefits. That's happened across several states. Several states have tried to implement a tax on those things to make it harder. We saw how that worked with cigarettes. People still bought it. But again, this isn't a new thing. This is from the 1920s. Soda tax to be abandoned. Now, even though this is in the Cochran paper, this is from Atlanta. Can anyone tell me what soda company is located in Atlanta, Georgia? Give you a couple seconds to think about it. Everybody take a drink of their glass and think. Because I don't know about you, but sometimes the right amount of alcohol makes you think a little better. Everybody got their answer? If you said Coca-Cola, you were right. The proposal to tax soft drinks has been abandoned, and the counter proposition providing a tax on carbonic acid. So instead of taxing the drink itself, we're doing the acid, the carbonic acid that makes the fizzy stuff. Gas will be presented to the General Assembly and developed for information on official and authentic source. The carbonic acid gas tax would affect bottlers of soft drinks, Coca-Cola, and soda fountains, and is intended to cover practically the same grounds as the soft drink tax, 1% per bottle or 1% per glass. Okay, so basically, you remember old school soda fountains? So we have soda fountains now. You have the Coca-Cola Freestyle, speaking of Coca-Cola, where you go in like your convenience stores, you go in, grab the glass. That's a fountain drink. They had them back here, old soda jerks, old soda fountains. You go in, get the root beer. Yeah. So they want to put a 1 cent per glass tax on that. So make it 1 cent more, which doesn't sound like a lot now. Back then it was a lot. Or have Coca-Cola, which is the major bottler in Georgia, 1 cent per bottle. I don't think it ever got done. Doesn't say just that the soda tax was abandoned and they changed it up to tax the actual fizzy stuff. Yeah. The actual fizzy stuff. Yeah, so soda tax, trying to make soda more expensive, has been going on for 100 plus years, people. So, speaking of that, my rye today, my Jefferson's rye. Anyone want to try a good rye and a good bourbon, try Jefferson's. Not an advertisement. I just personally like Jefferson's. I'm not getting paid by them. But I'm mixing mine with some Coke today, so it's pretty good. I said Jack of Coke. I got Jefferson's and Coke. Now, the last story of the day, which I find the most heartwarming and wrenching, most heartwarming story. The Red Cross trains 147 blind vets. So, as we all know, we have military conflicts over the world going on now, whether it's the U.S., whether it's other countries, and whether they're blinded in the active, whether they're blinded because of their duty or they're blinded white because of other things. The Red Cross is training them to do useful work so they can come back when they're here and be productive members of society. Because remember, this is what, 1921, so World War I ended 3 years earlier. Not quite 3 years. This is October. It ended. This is December, so October. So this article's from October. So just 3 years earlier. So we all know World War I ended as 11/11/18. That's why Veterans Day or Remembrance Day, if you're in Europe, is November 11th, because that's when the war ended. It ended on the 11th hour, on the 11th day of the 11th month in 1918. That's how we get November 11th. It's not just some random date. So the Red Cross basically designed training to fit from the battle life taken from 147 ex-servicemen at the Red Cross Institute for the Blind. Even though this is in Cochran, the Institute for the Blind is in Baltimore, Maryland, but it's in here because papers like today, when you go on and you scroll your Google News or you scroll your whatever you get your news from, it's news from all over the country. Papers did that. So 10 have gone on to other institutions. In almost every case, institutions, those having sight were receiving advanced education. So you can be partially blind, completely blind, whatever. You still need special training because you can be blind in one eye and not blind in the other. You still have to be able to see things. 12 men have passed from the institute successfully to carry on some occupation and business for which they were fitted by the special training. So basically, they're training 147 people. Some graduated, some that had sight went on to businesses. Some that were completely blind went on to do stuff specifically for their training. It's a great program. Maybe we should do that today. Get with the Red Cross, get with other programs, get with these vets that are disabled, blind, or whatever, and train them for certain things so they can go back and be productive members of society. The story right below it, which I didn't print out, it says they plan $6 million. The Red Cross plans $6 million in funding to help people across the country. So that's the last story. Now, one thing I found really interesting, and this has happened across all my research for my various cities: Cincinnati, Jackson, Juneau, Rochester, and others. Topeka, to name a few, Tampa. The newspapers, back in this time frame, carried excerpts, not excerpts. What they did is they took a novel, a book, whether it was a biography or a novel, and what they did is they would start the beginning, and each week they would put a chapter or a couple chapters in the paper for you to read. So especially like small towns like Cochran, where maybe you have a small library, you don't have access to all the novels that are going around or all the named books that are being published because the library might not carry them at that moment. They might carry them later. This gives you a chance to read. It gives you a chance to read these amazing biographies of these people. Like one had a biography of Hoover. One had a story, had a romance story in it, a crime story. Maybe you got to read the latest Agatha Christie novel, or even, I'm not sure Sherlock Holmes was still being done by then. I think he had done writing by 1920, but this is how Sherlock Holmes was. Sherlock Holmes in the 1890s, when Sir Arthur Conan Doyle was writing it, they didn't appear like we have them today as one story. They would break the stories up, especially the novels like The Hound and the Baskervilles. They would break them up into weekly things, where that way you would guarantee each week you would have readership because they wanted to read the next part of the story. So they would get the next part of the novel or the biography. That's how they would keep people coming back and subscribe to the newspaper. Now you can get an audiobook, which are great. You can pause and play whenever you want. And now you can binge a bunch of audiobooks. You can binge TV. So, but in a way, that's kind of good and bad, but you don't let your brain time to reset, but that's neither there. But I found that interesting that in this time frame, 20s, 30s, they did that, especially, as I said, in smaller towns like this, like Feely, Nebraska. That's how they would get people to read these books and get books read and get more knowledge to people and learn about people who were in the news. Like the 20s, Hubert Hoover, believe it or not, was a big guy. Before he was president, he was Secretary of War, Secretary of Commerce. He was in government. Okay, so he was in government. He was a successful guy. So you would read about him. That way you would know more about him. So that's how they did that. I found that fascinating that they would do that with not just biographies, but books that came out. They would put them in the newspaper so people could read them and keep up with what was going on, authors and stuff like that. Well, before I go, I'd like to thank all my new subscribers that have joined the channel. Hope you're liking the content. Also, make sure you like, you subscribe, you hit that notification bell so you get all the notifications when I do shorts, whatever. Once I hit 500 subscribers, I will create a Patreon, and that way I have enough people that can do it. I haven't determined the price yet, but I will do a Patreon, which will cover the bigger cities. This main channel, to let you know, is going to be for like the mid-sized to smaller cities. Do it in New York. That could be several parts and just be a long thing. I don't want to do that on the main channel. So the Patreon will be for like New York, Chicago, Boston, San Francisco. But if you want to do it, if you want to do your city, a small town city, mid-sized city, like something like Rochester or small like Cochran, put them in the comments below. Love to hear your suggestions on what I should do next. Next week will be a different city, and then the week after that I will continue doing capitals of the various states. So once again, thank everybody. Oh, before I forget, one more thing. My amazing, lovely wife, this is Mother's Day. She's a mother. This is being filmed on Mother's Day, May 10th. She has 2 channels. One's called Moondog Tarot. The other is called The Divine 222, which is just a Pisces-based tarot channel. So if anyone you know, your spouse or whatever, likes horoscopes, likes tarot, is into that, have them watch those channels. I think they're good. I might be biased, but I think they're good. Also, happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. Hope your kids are treating you well. Take you out to dinner, get you a card, home cooked meal, whatever it is they do for you. Hope they're doing that. And until next time, pour yourself a glass and be neat.